Okay, it's Romans. We want to look at Romans chapter 12. And we want to read in unison, 1 through 8. Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the measure of faith that God has given you. And just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given. If a man or woman's gift is prophesying, let him or her use it in proportion to his or her faith. If it is serving, let him or her serve. If it is teaching, let him or her teach. If it is encouraging, let him or her encourage. If it's contributing to the needs of others, let him or her give generously. If it is leadership, let him or her govern diligently. If it is showing mercy, let him or her do it cheerfully. Okay. Talking to you this morning about why bother. Have you ever said that? Those two words? Huh? Why bother? We all have done it. Probably did it this past week once or twice. Either openly or silently. Why bother? What is it? What does it mean when you say, why bother? It's futile. It doesn't matter. You don't care. Forget it. I'm not going to give it any more time, any more effort. It isn't going to happen. Why bother? It never takes place anyway. Why bother? Nobody cares. And it goes on and on, right? Yeah, that's our attitude from time to time. And all of us need counseling. Do you know that? Everybody here needs counseling. Well, that's a shocker, isn't it? But it's true. Not intensive counseling, but all of us need counseling from time to time. Somebody to bounce it off from. It's not for somebody to tell you what to do or how to live. It's to bounce where you are off from somebody else and let them respond to you. I've been in counseling from time to time, and it's helpful. It's beneficial. You get to see another side of yourself because they ask you questions that your family doesn't ask you. Family tells you, they don't ask. Counselor asks you questions, and out of the asking comes a lot of information about ourselves. And we've all made mistakes, haven't we? Yeah, we will continue to make mistakes. What is sin? Well, sin is meaning that you missed a mark. See, God's got a mark for every one of us. And we let other things take over and we don't get to where he wants us to be. It doesn't happen. And a lot of times we live in guilt because of what we have not done or the things we have done that we shouldn't have done. We get into guilt, do we not? And guilt can be really, really depressing. Guilt can leave you in a bad state. And so Paul is saying to us this morning that in Jesus Christ we've been forgiven. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that daily. We have been forgiven. Don't let the past continue to rob you of your present happiness. Tell yourself, hey, I did do that, but I've been forgiven. I'm not going to live in that torment for the rest of my journey. And we talked last week about God's prescription. And if you take God's prescription, which is forgiveness, love, and peace, you'll be well in your emotional person over and over again. That's prescription works. Now we have a lot of baggage, all of us, from our past. You've heard that phrase. And we add stuff to our baggage through crises, through stress, through tragedies. We add more things to our baggage than what we need. So we need to clean out our baggage. I went in my closet. We have a woman that's opened a secondhand store across the street from us. And there's stuff hanging in my closet that I haven't wore in I don't know when. And it hangs there and it takes up root. So I went up there on Friday and I said, boom, 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 boom. put it in a great big bag and took it over there and threw it on her floor and said, "Here it is. What's in there?" I said, "Open it and find out." Got rid of it. Got rid of the excess baggage in the closet. I don't need all that stuff. They say if you haven't worn it in 2 years, you don't need it. Okay? So think about that anyways. And not just in your closets, but think about it in your life, the baggage that you don't need. Throw it out. If you're still thinking the same nasty, mean thoughts about somebody, clean it out. Get rid of it. Say, I don't need that stuff anymore. It's working on me, not them. They could care less what I think about them. It's me that's going through all the drudgery of it. Clean it out. Get rid of it. And then we continue to make mistakes, which is part of life. And we hurt other people, do we not, from time to time, knowingly and unknowingly. And we are very prone to disobey. And we're very prone to rebel. I'm not going to do it. Have you said that in the last couple of weeks? I will not. We're very firm about some of those things. And we are so afraid of being judged by other people that we live in constant fear of not doing this and not doing that because I don't want them to judge me. I want them to think I'm a nice, sweet, loving person 24/7. And if they see that other side of me, they won't like me anymore, and I'll be in big problems. And then so many times we feel unworthy of people's affection. I'm not worthy to be liked. I'm not worthy to be praised. And you know, what's your attitude when somebody says something nice about you? Oh, no, we put ourselves down, don't we? Oh, that's nothing. That was nothing to do that. Say thank you very much. I went to a party last year for a woman that was being honored by her church. She was a very outspoken lady. So I went in and I said, "Hannah, it's wonderful that your church is having this party for you." She said, "They should. I've done a lot for them." I loved it. Because, you know, instead of saying, "Well, I don't know why they're doing this and all that," she said, "Why, they should have done it for me." Right. You know. And so we need to receive forgiveness. Over and over again I talk about that. And we need to be emptied of all of our emotional baggage that we do not need. Another area that we have problems with, we're afraid to face the truth about ourselves. I'll give you a quick instance. Some people that we know in a city that's a few miles from here wanted to come to see us today, and we're busy today, and we don't want to entertain them today. So Lewis on the phone said to him on Friday, "We're leaving for Pennsylvania on Sunday." Well, we're not leaving for Pennsylvania on Sunday. The other friend called yesterday, and I said, "Lewis, you are in hot water." Why? Because you told him when he asked when you're leaving, he said, "Monday." You ever played that game? I said, "Lewis, if you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said." So it's embarrassing. It's mistaking. We feel guilt. Because why? We lied. I didn't lie this time. Somebody else did. So we try to control the circumstances so that the circumstances cannot control us. We do that over and over again. And we build defensive walls all around us from various times. And we say when we build these walls, "I don't care what anybody else thinks about me," but we do. We do care what other people say about us. Because sometimes you'll say to a friend, "Well, I saw so-and-so. What'd they say about me?" Why do we want to know? Because we don't want to have negative things said about us. And you know what we're doing with all this stuff I'm talking to you about? We're just running away. We run away, we run away, we run away. But you can't run away from yourself. You can run away from other people, but you can't run away from you. That's a big problem. I know a friend said a few years ago they were moving to Texas. And they couldn't wait to get to Texas because they're going to have a whole new life and it's going to be wonderful and marvelous, a new home, a new job. And I said, "But there's one problem." And he said, "What?" "You got to take yourself with you." What do you mean? You've got to take yourself with you. Who you are here and so unhappy living here, you got to take that person with you to Texas. And Texas isn't going to change you. You've got to change you. You can't move and say, "Oh, that'll give me a whole new chance." It will for a while, but it won't last. The change has to come from within, again and again. If you and I will let go of the old self, the old person that we have been for so long, and let God give us a new birth inside, we'll get some new thoughts, we'll get some new improvement, and things will really, really change. I had a friend, and she died many years ago. She was one of the most beautiful ladies I knew. Her name was Irene. Irene died in her 90s. Irene had a man that she was married to by the name of Will. And Will was one of the most miserable men that you could ever be around. He was miserable to her. He was miserable to me. He was miserable to anybody he could be around. And he lived that way for years. And his wife, Irene, married him. They had both been married before. Irene never had children. Will had children from a previous marriage. And so Irene, after being married to Will, because she was sweet, kind, and loving, she really was. After being married to Will for many years, she said, I'm not going to bother with him anymore. I have had it with Will. He's mean, he's nasty, he's disagreeable. I'm going to leave him. So she went to see a lawyer. And she told the lawyer about what she'd been putting up with. And I wish we had more lawyers like this. He said, Irene, what is Will going to do after you leave him? Well, what do you mean? Who's going to listen to him? Who's going to try to help him? Who's going to care about him? Well, probably nobody. Do you want him to be left like that, with nobody to care about him? And they talked for quite a while. He said, Irene, I'm going to put the papers in my desk drawer. And when you decide that you want to sign them, they'll be here, come back in. She never went back. She stayed with Will until he died. And before Will died, he came into a new change. A new side came out of him that had never been there before. I said, Irene, it's because you put up and loved and forgave and cared and shared again and again that brought the change in Will before he died so that he could die in peace. I said, you paid a price. She said, but it was a good price. I was willing to do it because she said, I got to see the change. And I knew that it had come because I was willing to pay the price. She could have said in the law office, I'm not going to bother anymore. I'm going to quit. And another humorous story about Will and Irene. Will won the the Irish sweepstakes in 1949, which was mega money back in those days. He lived in New York City. And he married Irene. And so they went on a cruise for their honeymoon. And on the cruise, they were on the deck. And they met another couple. And the couple was talking to Bill and Irene. And they said, how many children do you have? Bill said, I have 4 children. Mr. Miller made a mistake. He has 5 children. Irene, I want to see you in the cabin. So they go down to the cabin. I only have 4 children. Will, you have 5 children. You don't like the 5th one, and you don't have anything to do with it, but you have 5 children. And as long as you're married to me, you will have 5 children. Now, if you want to subtract 1, I will get off from the boat when we dock, and we will not have any. So from there on in, he had 5 children. See, that's how you handle things, you know. You don't say, I'm going to leave. You say, no, let's state the truth. The truth is, you've got 5 kids. Whether you like one of them or not, you've got 5, and that's going to be the count. I'm going to keep the count. And if you forget the count, I'll remind you what the count is. Beautiful people out there in life. You learn a lot from other people. And Jesus says to us, if you will let go and quit saying, why bother, you'll find out that life can take on a whole new dimension for yourself. If you want to get logged into the circumstances and stay there, you'll go down in the mire. But if you want to put 1 foot up and the next foot up and 1 more up, guess what? Eventually you get to dry land. You get out of the water, you get out of the mire, and you get to dry land. And you say, oh, it works. Thanks be to God.